Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us. About Us. The Business of Creating was co-founded by writer-producer Jennifer Mangan and entertainment marketing executive Michael Fisk. The Business of Creating is an ongoing live interactive panel series and Q&A with seasoned entertainment executives. Our purpose is to educate and to empower professionals who already possess foundational knowledge by providing up-to-the-minute useful information and practical action steps in order to create, finance, market, sell, and distribute top-quality projects. We've already produced and moderated over 30 panels, and here's a sampling of previous ones, including creating rippos, sizzles, and other marketing materials, creating digital marketing campaigns, producing your project, distribution for indie projects, unit photography, animation, financing your project 1 and 2, and developing your project strategies to implement during COVID. To watch some of these panels and to find out more, follow us on socials. You can find us on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and of course our website, businessofcreating.org. And thank you to our sponsors, Second Home, the Writers Guild Foundation, and Final Draft. Business of Creating is an all-volunteer nonprofit organization. We rely on sponsors to help cover our costs and keep events free for everyone who wishes to attend. If you can sponsor or know somebody who can, please reach out to us either through socials or at our website, businessofcreating.org, or look us up directly on Venmo at Business of Creating. Today's discussion topics for graphic novels Evolution 360, from pitch to production and cross-platforming your project, will include how to determine the best format for your idea, how to pitch your idea, and how that differs for different platforms, graphic novels, live TV film projects, animated TV film projects. What do publishers and producers look for in order to greenlight a project? What do managers look for when considering repping a project? What materials do you need to successfully pitch your project? How much can you do yourself? And when is it time to hire a professional?
Okay, so we're going to begin now more officially, and what I'm going to do is just do an introduction to our wonderful moderator, Jennifer Mangan, who is a dear friend. And first of all, not only do I adore her, and we've co-founded this, but she is just such an amazing creator, writer, producer, who owns the independent production company Beautiful Day Productions, which focuses on material that uplifts and empowers women through comedy and sci-fi and fantasy. And this is how we kind of met, like after graduating with distinction, from UCLA, sorry, I'm going to take my glasses, UCLA's in business and management and entertainment, Jennifer co-founded and produced the Women in Film mini upfronts, promoting female content creators via red carpet industry screenings of trailers and sizzles for unproduced projects. Recognizing the need for the creatives to gain practical advice and guidance from seasoned entertainment execs in order to market and sell their projects, Jennifer co-founded, produces, and moderates this panel series, Business of Creating. Currently, Jennifer's epic sci-fi fantasy television show Animal Magnetism is in development with Emmy-nominated executive producer Randy Greenberg, who's known for, if you've ever seen The Meg, the giant shark, which was awesome, got to work on that film, A Tale Dark and Grim, and Cowboys and Aliens. And with that, big applause to Jennifer who's moderating.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming out tonight and giving Michael and I the opportunity to learn everything we can about graphic novels Evolution 360, from pitch to production to cross-platforming your project. We are so fortunate tonight with our panelists. Everybody, first and foremost, we have David M. Booher. Come on down, David. David, everybody, is a GLAAD-nominated writer of comics, television, and film. His most recent comics works include Killer Queens with Dark Horse, Joe Hill's Reign with Image, Canto with IDW, Specs with Boom Studios, All New Firefly with Boom Studios, and Dungeons & Dragons Saturday Morning Adventures with IDW. The man's busy. And in addition to all of that, his all-ages fantasy series Canto, Beautiful, you guys. You're lucky you're sitting because we're going to be looking at some of that artwork and the storylines. You're going to be glad you're sitting. Your jaws are going to hit the floor. It's fantastic. So Canto, exactly. Ooh, look at you. Look at you. Oh, and we're auctioning this off tonight. No. So this is in development as a feature film, which David is going to write and executive produce and adapt. So he's cross-platforming. His LGBTQ-led Killer Queens was featured in the New York Times as a must-read in honor of Pride Month. What you got there, David? Ooh, is that an issue? I almost said episode, everybody look at me. An issue of Killer Queens right there, checking it out.
We might get into this, but this is 4 issues collected into a collected edition.
I know what I'm getting for my niece and nephew.
Oh, it's a little racy for them. It's basically Guardians of the Galaxy, so that's how we pitch it.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, that's the after panel, everybody. Okay. So let me see. So it's a must read in honor of Pride Month. And David is a lawyer by training. He lives in LA with his husband. And the most important part, the true brains behind their operation, they're adopted greyhounds, everybody. Welcome, David. Okay, everybody, giving us the other side of the equation. Everybody, let's welcome Eric Borja. Come on down, Eric. Eric is a literary manager at Writ Large. He manages screenwriters, directors, and authors. His clients include David with Canto, C. Adele Williams with Oh My God, Yes, and Chris Ryle from Lock and Key. He might sound familiar because he's going to be on our next panel, everybody, okay? So Eric has extensive experience in all aspects of the entertainment industry.
The suspense is killing me.
You'll have to wait for the next issue to come out. So including production, development, film finance, branded content, and business operations. Through this varied work, he's amassed an extensive network and diverse set of skills and knowledge that he uses to help filmmakers build their careers. Eric started his career in the New York production offices of big studio movies like The Departed, The Interpreter, and American Gangster. After moving here to LA,
aging myself, those movies, sorry.
He was a child. It was an internship, high school internship, everybody. So with that knowledge, he moved to LA and transitioned to development and film finance at Groundswell Productions, where he worked on Milk, The Informant, and The Visitor. This was early college, obviously, for him. And finance operations at Illumination Entertainment, where he worked on Despicable Me. Everybody, a warm welcome for Eric. All right, everybody, warming up there, ready to come down the aisle. It's my partner in crime, Michael Fisk. So Michael is the co-founder of our Business of Creating panel series. He is a senior marketing executive in the entertainment industry, having spearheaded over 500 marketing campaigns for studios like Sony Pictures, Lionsgate, NBC Universal, Warner Brothers, and most recently for MGM. He also runs InterMark, the international consulting practice focusing on helping filmmakers, producers, directors, and distributors with long-term marketing strategy and producing. Michael is also just a slightly busy man. He is a founding partner of Pangram Entertainment, which produces docuseries, live-action film, and animated series. Fun fact about Michael, some of his favorite marketing campaigns he's worked on are the James Bond franchises. He's done just the last six, y'all. He did Spider-Man, several of the Damien Chazelle films like Whiplash and La La Land, and don't hold it against him, but he really enjoyed working on the guilty pleasure movie Superbad. Everybody welcome my partner, Michael.
Thank you.
Okay, everybody. So we're talking tonight about graphic novels, but a lot of us also are coming in with live action or animated feature film TV scripts. So we need to know, how am I supposed to figure out which one is the best format for my idea, especially if it would work fabulously for everything? How do you choose which one to go for first?
All right. I follow my gut, and that's the worst response to the answer that you could have. But really,
Eric, what do you have to say? No.
Yeah. Panel's over. I'm out. No, I really do follow my gut because sometimes these ideas form, and then I think, oh, it's gonna be good as a comic. Oh, this would be good as a feature. Oh, this would be good as a TV pilot. That sort of thing. What I'm doing now, I kind of conceive of ideas in several different formats. And the reality that we're working in right now, and I'm sure we're going to talk a lot about that, is that IP is king. I always tell people whenever I have a meeting with an executive, like a general, they always ask me, what do you have and what is it based on? So original ideas, as wonderful as they are, Eric will tell you, they're a heavy lift. So often when I come up with an idea that's for a film or a TV, I think about how can this be a comic? How can this be a like fiction novel? How can this be a short story? Because one of the conversations we've been having within the last couple of days is these enormous sales for short stories that have happened, that have hit the trades. And so anything underlying your idea is going to help sell your idea in film and TV. So the very long answer to the very pithy question you asked is, I just follow your gut, whatever feels right for the idea.
Okay, I need to ask you a little bit further about that, even though we're like right at the very first slide. But okay, so fine, I've turned this into a graphic novel pitch. I've turned it into a short story because everybody's going, I could do a short story. Okay, note to self, tomorrow morning, number 1, write a short story. Okay, so then can I self-publish that? And then it's, what is today? Tuesday. So Friday morning, it's on Amazon, right? Or what have you, as a self-published thing. And that's going to be enough. That's the underlying IP.
I mean, it's the Wild West now. You can literally export to PDF.
Yeah.
And just
print to
get it
PDF
out, and just get it out there. But it's just now it's turned into like these short stories that are unpublished, or they're just pitches. Mm-hmm. But they just claim it's a short story because it's in a narrative format, and it's not you pitching the idea, the log line, the characters. It's just like a 15-page PDF, and they have a better chance of selling if they have some sort of attachment. But yeah, it's the complete Wild West now. So.
Okay, so you don't have to have 1 million followers or what have you for the IP. I mean, obviously, yes, please. Can we? Yes, I would like 1 million followers for my Canto or what have you. But all right, we don't have that yet. We don't have that. How many people are in your family? How many cousins do you have? That's how many followers we have, right? I'm Irish. I'm in a good stead. But so how many followers, etc. Then it becomes more valuable.
I mean, it's about, I hate to say it, but it's about packaging. Okay. A lot. So this short story that recently hit the trades, Jessica Chastain was attached to it. Misha Green was attached to direct and write the feature for it. And correct me if I'm wrong, but those attachments existed before they took it out to sell it. And that's how they got the bidding war, because it's a 22-page short story, but you have all these wonderful attachments. And when you go into Netflix, you go into Warner Brothers, you go to these executives, they're like, oh, yeah, it's a Jessica Chastain star vehicle with Misha Green writing it. Okay, and directing. I see exactly what this is going to be. And that's when they put the money out there for $50,000 a page or whatever insane amount it was. So the first step is getting the idea down on the page. And I'm going to amend my last answer and say, if you do have a feature idea, if you do have a TV idea, really think hard about whether or not you want to go down the road of the very hard labor of writing the feature script that you know is going to end up being need $100 million for the budget, or do you have that idea, figure out how to do it as a comic book, as a novel, as a short story, knowing that you have that feature in you to do when the time comes if you get that opportunity. And so I would suggest coming up with these great ideas, but then thinking about a way to make it real, to make it tangible, to then be able to then take it to the next step, which is the TV or film or anything like that. Because there's no better feeling than picking up that comic book that you've made. I know lots of screenwriters out there who have made money and made a living, and they've never had anything tangible to hold up and show anybody about their work. So,
Yeah, and I think the key part of that, and you hit on it with IP is king, is you own it. You know, you control the process. If a studio options it, then they have like a certain amount of time to set it up, package it. Hopefully you write the adaptation, but at the end of the day, you own it. You know, when it's a script, they just buy it outright and it's gone. You know, usually within like an acquisition agreement, or if they buy it, they're building in like some steps for the original writer to do another draft for them. But once you get past that, it's anybody's ball game. You know, and I think, you know, with all of these questions, you know, when I talk about it with my clients, and it's a little bit of a mind fuck. Apologize for my language.
Can we swear?
Because there are, you should like look. There's like kind of like two different like tracks, like, and they're very different. So you have selling a project, which is kind of all of this stuff. Like, do I do a rip reel? Do I do a sizzle reel? Do I do a short story? Like, what's the best way to present this to an executive who doesn't want to talk to me or my representative? Like, what's the best way to present David and this project? And then there's this whole other side, which is the best, like, getting something made, you know, which is after like pitching something. And the best way to get something made and the best way to put yourself forward is a strong script, because that's at the end of the day what's going to get your project made. Because, you know, I had a lot of luck over the pandemic, especially with David, like setting up stuff based on pitches.
I don't know about this. Tell me about this. No, I'm just kidding.
But at the end of the day, what goes to the decision makers, the buyers, the people at the head of Netflix, Amazon, who, what be it, they're going to read a script. That's it. They're not going to see the reel it came in with. They'll read the underlying IP. But the thing that will guide them towards making a yes or no decision is the script and how strong it is. Yeah. So you kind of have to think about the business in those two buckets. And so for people who are just starting their careers, just trying to make a name for themselves in this industry and get some momentum, just like getting something set up at a production company with a financier is the most important thing. So like kind of just pitch, graphic novel, what have you.
And you'll need it, just so you're aware, is like that script comes in really handy, because we're dealing with a few projects right now where they said, okay, we have a really good pitch deck, we have some really good treatments, but they're saying we can't pitch this. You only really get like that one ask very often. And if they like it, they're like, oh, we want to see the script immediately. And they're like, oh, we don't have it, we'll go back to you. And you're like, okay, you just lost that momentum, you know? And I think I just want to unpack a few things that were just said here too, is I think when it comes down to that, and this is my perspective on something, and is, you know, from a creative perspective, you have this idea, like just run with it and go with it. Like, because just pour that out into that idea of what you need to be done. Then what's really critical is, and David and Eric has been saying this, is that you really do have to think about then who is it for. You know, sometimes the reason I say just go with your idea and run with it first, because if you start thinking of like, oh, I'm going to do for this, but then, you know, it kind of holds back on the creativity. But ultimately, you're going to have to clearly define who your project is. And I'll give an example, because when I was driving here in the rain, I was a friend of mine. We're helping develop this one idea with these two producers, and they were saying, we were asking them, we're like, who's this for? And they're like, it's for everybody. and my friend says that means it's for nobody. You know, because I mean, yes, of course it is for, you know, it's like there's certain things for everybody, but it comes down to when a studio has limited money, they don't have enough media money to spend it across everything, which is why you always see them. There's a primary audience that you kind of go after. That's where you spend the money on. You might have secondary audiences where you can spend ancillary money, sustain campaigns, do publicity around it. But ultimately, you have to kind of define who it is. Doesn't mean that it will change. Yes, it is. It might change, you know, as you kind of go through it. But you have to. You can't go in, because it's a business. It's a business.
Yeah,
right?
my poor soft creative heart is just like withering as you talk about
No.
that. So I'm like, to the heck with the audience. You do what you love, and the
No, you
audience
do.
will come. And then the studio executives will be like, no, that's not how we do things. I'll give you a perfect example.
No, but that's why we call this panel the business of creating.
Right.
It's great.
No, the example I have is Canto, and we set out to make what we call an all ages fairy tale, and there's a little bit of an edge to it. It feels like from anybody who was alive in the 80s or was a kid in the 80s, that was what I grew up with. So Dark Crystal, Neverending Story, Labyrinth, Return to Oz. There is a dark edge to it that we as kids just accepted and internalized. And that's what we set out to do with Canto. And it's been very interesting because we've connected with the comic book audience a lot. But there is always this question about, there's definitely the middle grade kids bucket where you have like Diary of a Wimpy Kid, and you have Babysitter's Club. Yeah, he's got tons of kids, so he knows. But then you have the bucket that's the YA, and it's kind of the edgier stuff. And we kind of are going toward the 12-year-old audience, but with an edge to it. And it's been trying to push into that where you don't quite fit into that bucket. That's been an interesting.
But that is great though, because at least there's a market. You know who it is for.
Sure.
And you want it. That target, and then you're like, you're right. It's an edge. It's edgy there, or it's genre bending. It's not. You're not saying
genre bending.
Genre bending.
Totally.
That's another. Yes.
Wow. All right.
Well, frankly, as a creative person, I'm finding this all actually very reassuring because you're saying, hey, the script is the queen at the end of it, okay? It's the queen. So fantastic. I know how to do that, right? We all know how to do that. And now you're telling me, okay, you're giving me quantifiable things to figure out. Oh, well, who's your target audience? What, kind of budget are you looking at? Those are figure outable. So that, you're able to come at it with both sides that way and be much more impressive and taken more seriously and told, yes, we want to read your script, so fantastic. Those are some action steps right there. You got the writing part done. You're telling me figure out the target audience. You guys are telling me write and self-publish my short story for it. So this is fantastic.
Print a PDF. That's all.
Well,
That's it.
but see, this is great because I believe Final Draft does all the different formats. So you can have short story. You can just transfer it right over. Boom, sorted. So wait till the end of the panel, y'all, for those. So okay, we've been talking a little bit about how to pitch your idea. But let's take it a little bit further, and also how does that differ depending on what you're doing? If you're doing it as a graphic novel, if you're doing it as live or animated projects.
Do you want to give
Show
the example?
I think we should do Canto first. Yeah. So beautiful.
All right. So we're going to get down and dirty because I have a feeling
No,
that
we're
a lot
doing
of you
Canto.
folks are here because you're interested in figuring out how to pitch whatever you're working on, screenplay, pilot, whatever, how to pitch it as a comic book, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this was the pitch. I'm totally getting serious here. This was the pitch that we put together when we first took out Canto to publishers to publish as a comic book. And it did not start life as a TV project or a film project. It started life because I met Drew Zucker, who is the artist on Canto, through social media, and that's going to be your key to finding artists, a colorist, putting together a team to make a comic. I met him through social media, and I saw a project that he had done on Kickstarter that was a horror book that I thought was really cool. And I really liked the visuals, I really liked the story, so I said, hey, reached out to him, I got this idea, do you want to work together? And he responded to me, and he said, I'm too busy. I was like, how dare you? But this was also like 2017, so I was like, I'd never done comics. But that project wrapped up, and he came back to me. And what he sent to me, where's my visual aids? What he sent to me was a little character sketch for an idea that he had been working on. And it was this little Clockwork Knight that I've showed you before. But
Can I help you?
This is a we're 23 issues in now, so this is a collection of some of the later issues. But this little Clockwork Knight, and I was so taken by this sketch that in about half a second it came into my inbox, and I thought, I don't know who this character is. I don't know what the story is, but we are sure as hell telling it. So we started going back and forth, and he really had a kind of a take on it that was inspired by Dante's Inferno. So it was a little bit more on the edgier side, and I'm an enormous fan of Wizard of Oz. So we kind of melded Dante's Inferno, Wizard of Oz, and came up with this all ages fairy tale. And I don't want to monopolize the time, but can I give you the elevator pitch?
Yes.
He's a little clockwork knight in search of a heart. His people have been enslaved, so they're not allowed to have names. They're not allowed to love one another. And when they were taken, their hearts were moved and replaced with clocks. So when their time is up, that's it. But Canto, he defies all the rules. He has a name, and he loves a little clockwork girl. But when her clock gets damaged, he's got to go out in his great big fantastical world. You remember Dark Crystal, Never-Ending Story, Labyrinth. He's got to brave all the dangers to find where they take their hearts to bring hers back to save her. So what I like to say, it's part fantasy, part adventure, and all hearts. So that's ultimately sold.
Yeah.
So that's ultimately the idea that we came up with. And from there, we started working through what the story was going to be, what the long form, 5 issues, 6 issues. And then we put together the visuals for us. And this was the pitch. So this was the cover page that we ended up saying it's a PDF. And it's like 8 pages, 6 pages or something. So then because it's a fairy tale like book that I wanted to call back to like the 19th century, early 20th century, like Wizard of Oz, we did it on this cool parchment. And you can see Drew's kind of sketches kind of, in the background. That first page was a quote, "I shall take the heart," returned the Tin Woodman, "for brains do not make one happy, and happiness is the best thing in the world." And that was the quote from Wizard of Oz. And then Dante's Inferno, it was from there that we emerged to see once more the stars. So very hopeful. So that was just to give a little tone. And then this is the actual pitch, kind of what I just told you on the next page. And then we talked about where the market is for this, like who would read this comic if we published it. And then we talked about the creative team between me and Drew and the colorist. And then we actually put together the 3 story arcs that we were thinking about. That was it. So, and then these were the sample pages that ultimately became the comic. So you can flip through those a little bit. And then we did something cool. We only had five full pages done. But then this last page that we did, this doesn't appear in any of the comics. But it was our way to show the publisher, look what's coming. There's a Kraken. There's whatever that thing is. There's those guys, whoever they are. Nobody knows. They don't know when they're reading this, but it looks cool, right? So they want to know more. So that's what we put together to pitch it to publishers. And that's what IDW picked up at the end of the day. So I wanted to bring that today just to show you what you can put together. So if you've written a screenplay, if you've written a pilot and you want to go to the comic side of things, something like this, as you pitch your idea, I think is very, very effective to convey what you want to do. So that's Canto.
Can you just talk about a little bit about the team, like the importance of, do they look at the team? And I don't know if like Eric, do you see that? Because I always hear it's really important to show who's behind it, not even just the idea. How much is that great?
Oh, just in terms of the adaptation and going out with it?
Who's the illustrator? Who's the writer? Like behind David?
Yeah, I mean, a little bit, but like if they're into the story and the artwork, they're in.
Well, the art is so important.
Yeah.
Especially, you can have an okay story that will get carried by the art, but you can't have a great story that can be carried by okay art. So it's really important who you get to do your story, to draw it. And I think the traction that we've gotten for Canto is that story, is that pitch, that elevator pitch I just gave you, but also then I can hold up the artwork. Eric can hold up the artwork and say, look, we're backing up this story with some fantastic visuals. So, it immerses them in the world.
Yeah, and we all know execs don't want to read, so
pictures, lots of pictures.
Yeah.
If I can jump in on that, one thing I'm noticing, coming from the live action side of it, there are a lot of similarities to doing like a pitch deck for a live action show whether that's TV or film. And I'm noticing like your front, that's kind of your log line where you're giving the quotes and the tone of it, and then you're giving the synopsis, and then you've got the look and feel of the whole thing. So I'm able to translate that over into what I already know. And so again, it kind of makes you go, oh, okay, I'm not completely lost on how to do this as a graphic novel. There are quite a few similarities. You're obviously just, changing it for the format, but you've got a lot of the same elements.
Yes, that's a great point. Your log line becomes your premise. Your synopsis is your synopsis. Obviously, you're going to have to adapt it to make it the best story that it can be in the comic format, because that's another thing that I'll stay on my high horse all day about. You can't just adapt your movie to a comic book and expect the storyboards to read nicely as a comic book. You got to reimagine your story that works in comics and vice versa. So I'm doing that right now as we're developing Canto as the film. I'm going through everything that we've done and I'm looking at it and going, well, what is going to work visually when you are sitting in your comfy chair in iPix and you're leaning back with your vodka tonic or whatever? What's going to work on that huge screen in front of you versus what's going to work when you're sitting at home reading the comic book? So a lot of the elements are the same, and it's just learning how to adapt them into the different formats and what they demand.
I would look at that artwork all day long.
Okay, I'm going to show you this sizzle reel. This is like a cone of silence thing. I know we're being recorded, but it's going to get edited. We've taken this Killer Queens out for TV, pitching it, and this is what we play at the beginning before we pitch the TV show. Can you imagine going into executives and being like, oh, we got the show, and then you play that? But you almost, after that teaser, you almost don't even have to pitch the show. They're like, this is it. Take it or leave it. So that's something we did for the TV pitch. Did you put in the comic pitch? So this is a much simpler way to pitch a comic. This has the same elements. This is a comic that I put a log line in. So there you go, screenwriting right there. The log line, the synopsis, and then if you look down at the bottom, you can see I pulled out like 40s and 50s space race, space age comic book covers because that's what I wanted this series to be. I wanted it to be very edgy and forward with the queer content, but also very throwback to like Buck Rogers. Are we allowed to swear?
Yeah.
Or Buck Rogers. Buck Rogers. Yeah, I wanted to have that feel to it, old-fashioned but very edgy. So I actually put in images into the pitch of comps that I thought, this is the tone of it. This is the world we want to live in. I had a. Can you go to the next
Can I
one?
just say one thing before we go
No,
on?
keep going.
The key thing, the great thing, what David did here is, see, that the comps are really, really important. And I'll tell you why, because yesterday I was on a pitch with Japan, and it's for a documentary we're doing also converting into a live a scripted series. And for the people that we were pitching to, we had 5 different comp titles, and I remember we were talking about it, and we brought up the comp titles, and one of the producers was like, you saw it. They were like, oh. And then he ended up telling me, it was like he saw, everyone's seeing Jiro Dreams of Sushi, that documentary, right? Like that one comp out of these 5, they gravitated towards. So you never know which one it is. You just need one, and then they were like, I get it, and that you just having that, then people understand, okay, I understand whether it's a tonal thing or whether it's like this is the type of box office or awareness you're trying to get. It just helps out for them to understand. The weird thing is that you very often don't know what's going to resonate. That's why having a few of them are really good, because hopefully one of them is, and they usually grab towards the one they love. If they disagree with the other one, they don't really care. It's like, oh my God, that one I love. Okay, I get it. And just think about that when you're kind of going in the pitches, because it'll get people to understand in the frame of mind of what your thinking is, because they want to see something familiar, as a grounding of like, okay, now I know where to start.
And for comics, you can adapt that to talk about, you can identify other comic books, and it serves 2 purposes. One, it shows them that there are readers out there who are interested in this kind of thing, if it's a comic that's successful and is kind of tonally similar to what you're doing. And then the other thing is, if you want to make comics, it's terrible, but you should read comics. You should actually be familiar with comics. And I know a lot of us are screenwriters, and we're like, well, I just want to make the comic. Why do I have to read stuff? This is terrible. There are good ones out there, but it also projects that you are familiar with the medium. So, do you have anything to say about comps and identifying comps when you're pitching?
No, I mean, I'm a big believer in it, and I think you both kind of hit it. It's showing that there's specificity of thought in terms of the tone and the audience, and that's you just want to like lead the executives to the water, just like a little bit.
Just like. No, I'm just kidding.
No, and do you ever deal with anybody like you're like, to David's point, do you ever have someone pitch it and you're like, okay, they really don't understand, graphic novels? Like, do you see that where you're just like, it's not coming from it's more like they just want to do a one-off? Do you kind of feel it through or no?
In terms of pitching a graphic novel?
Do you know if like, to David's point, it's like read them and do them, do you know someone who like, or they pitched them to you and you're like, yeah, they're not really into it?
No, I think because, I mean, that's kind of the advantage too of going out with a piece of IP is they're going to read it, and if they want to take the meeting, it's because they really enjoy it and know they can be a value add to it. So all the meetings you've taken on both Canto and Killer Queens have been really positive.
Yeah, but they know David loves graphic. Do you ever have someone who's not like a David, who just like, if I just decide to create one and pitch it to you,
can you see through
it? That's what I'm saying. Do you see through
the
people?
Emperor has no clothes?
Yeah, do you see through people who are like pitching it and you're like, yeah, they don't even know what they're doing?
Yeah, I mean, it's to David's point about like loving comics and reading comics, you can tell who the people are who just create it as just like a piece of IP, just be like, no, I'm just going to do this because this is what sells. But the ones who have a passion and who have a knowledge and who study the form, you can just tell right away.
Or fake it so good.
Well, I wanted to check in with you guys on that because it's, again, a lot of similar items as far as pitching the graphic novels versus live or animated shows. When we're looking at comps for the graphic novels, because I know, Michael, we've discussed before about like, TV shows or movies, they should be within the last 5 years. And blah, 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 blah. So is that similar for graphic novels, that there's a different time, you need to have a reason? No?
I mean, you probably have a different answer than I do, but I'm just like, no, if it's like The Love Boat, then go for it. I don't care.
Okay.
Yeah, no, definitely just whatever fits the project and whatever you're passionate about. That's what I've found is just like there's a lot, obviously, of nostalgia. So it's just like a lot of 80s.
I think The Love Boat is being remade too. So it's
yeah, just like
there's nothing that's
thrillers.
old because it's all new again.
Yeah, just bringing up erotic thrillers from the 80s, 90s. That will show that that you're influenced in a meaningful way and that you have a way of remixing what
Basic Instinct.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think can I just say the one, and you're right, Jen, like in general, when it comes down to comps, like in the movie world, they show comps from a business perspective, like box office, right? But now you don't want to go back 10 years because it's changed. Well, now it's all thrown out the window anyway with COVID, so it doesn't even matter. But I think what it is, even David's point is, you use comps, you can go back and showing tonally or what this is about. You can go back generations or to, classics. You can definitely do that just to give an idea of it. It was more of like, if you're trying to show it from a business perspective of like box office wise, now it doesn't matter because of COVID, but
Well, and streaming too. Like
yeah,
you don't even have to show, streaming, they don't share those numbers. So how can you find that out? One of the things with the trailer I forgot to mention, which is so important, is that trailer we created from the artwork in the comic book. There's a way to make motion trailers like that. That was all artwork that was already pre-existing because it was based on a comic book. So I think it looks really cool and really like polished and smooth. But that's something we did because we had a comic book. Otherwise, we'd have to make it from scratch, and you have to have somebody pay for that from scratch. And it's unlikely when you're pitching it that they would put all this money toward it without having sold it.
Well, the great thing what you did there too is that you made it look like this static image was moving in the sizzle piece. The way you kind of.
And there's companies that actually do that.
And so you were able to do that yourself, because that's one of our later questions is, how much can you do yourself and when do you need to go out and hire the professional in order to really make your materials sizzle?
I sent the email to the company that makes us. And I actually hired somebody there. We hired a director who I say director, and I think that's actually what the role is. It's somebody who goes in to the comic book and tells the production company, these are the shots we want. This is how we want it to move. These are the sound effects. We want this to be the push-pull thing or whatever that is. See, that would be amazing as a director of these. I want this to do this, and then this one goes around here, and just do it. But I actually hired somebody to then direct that sizzle. And it's so far out of my wheelhouse. So that's just another piece of advice, I guess, is just hire the professionals. I could never draw a comic, so I never will. I'll hire people who know that's their expertise. So.
And now for trailer editing, then are you going to a different company as opposed to like going to, one to do the TV show or to do the live action?
Yeah, this is a company that just specializes in comic book trailers. So if you go on YouTube and you search comic book trailers, there's tons of these motion comics trailers against different kind of music. They usually don't have a voiceover. That was to like project the idea of a TV show. But most of the time, like Canto has a trailer on YouTube, and it has like fancy old-timey script writing into it with this cool like Lord of the Rings epic orchestral background. But that fit with what it was, and that helps us sell the comic book. And we just adapted it now to pitch the TV show.
And Eric, that brings me more to a question for you. When you're taking things out, because obviously Canto and Killer Queens, just even the formatting and the style of the decks, they're very different. So, and obviously they work for the tone of the project and everything, but then is it the Wild West? You make it look like however it looks like, or are there some rules to follow of, look, you need to have it, do X, Y, and Z?
Oh, in terms of pitching the adaptation?
And or the graphic novel, both. Because you get told so often it's either here's the proper formatting for this and you'd better follow it, and God help you if you didn't dot the I and cross the T, or it's let it all hang out and let the party begin as far as how you style things and how you put them together and etc.
Yeah, in terms of going out with the graphic novel to publishing companies, it's just like it kind of just is what David put. And it's just like they expect kind of just those different sections kind of in that general order. But within that, you can definitely play. But in terms of pitching the adaptation to it, that's even easier. You just give them the comic book, and then you kind of use that as to open the door to then have David go in and pitch his vision for the adaptation.
For the TV show.
So yeah, with Canto, he's pitching what he would change and how many how many comic books he would cover in the first film, and it's the same with the TV series.
Yeah, and so on the Killer Queens pitch for the comic book, you can see on the next page, I had the artist already involved, so we were already partnered. So she did some character designs that I was able to put in there. But then for the actual story itself, it's just all words. So luckily, editors actually like to read. So you can go to the next one. And then the newest project that's coming is a horror book that's called The Drowned Man. And we have one image for that, which is this cover image. And it looks really cool. We haven't even announced it yet. We're announcing it this weekend, so cone of silence. This is going to be at Image Comics. That's the only artwork we have. But for the pitch, if you go to the next page, Michael, you can see I actually put in actor comps. So this is for a comic book. But this is telling the editor, the publisher, and the artist, these are the people that I picture for these characters. So they don't have to look exactly like this, but it just gives the sense of this is where my head is at. So there's many different ways to pitch your comic book. And there's 3 different formats. You can go blow the doors off with a fully formatted thing. if you have your artist, do some concept art. And if you don't have an artist, you have the internet. So just pull the images, pull the actors you like, and put your characters in there.
I'm loving that that's obviously live action real people, even though you're pitching it as the graphic novel. Because that's another question that, we're wondering about is, okay, I don't have sketches. Stick people, that's not going to work for you guys when you're taking it out to pitch. I'll put a dress on one.
I mean, maybe it will. Depends on your project.
Yeah, it's about cavemen. It takes place a long time ago. But so, yeah, but I get Drew this time. I get Drew. Okay, I already. Michael says I have to share, but I was thinking just. But anyway, so I'm appreciating that. Oh, okay, wait, this is again something you can go home and do, or you can talk to Jalen at the back there, a fabulous storyboard artist. So, but yeah, so okay, great. I can take care of that at home and at least mock something up, and then when the time comes that I need to have somebody polish it up, I've still been able to do the majority of the work and do my action steps on that. So that's nice and reassuring to see how much you can actually do yourself, with your own laptop.
Right. I don't know how much we want to drill down into pitching the comics because there are different ways to pitch a comic. And my 5-second spiel, which will, as you know by now, will be longer than 5 seconds. It's if you have the artist, if you have the team together, then you do something like Killer Queens where you have concept art and you show what it's going to look like. Oftentimes, if you are a writer, you go to the publisher with just this, showing this is the story that I want, and hey, publisher, can we partner to find the right artist to bring this to life? And if you bring the team to a place like Image Comics, they'll let you keep the adaptation rights. Eric's ears are going up.
Yeah.
If you go to the publisher with just your pitch and they bring the artist to it and they put it together alongside you, they are almost certainly going to take the adaptation rights and you'll get paid out for it, but they will control how it goes out there. And I personally, Eric,
it becomes a work for hire, right?
Yeah, basically a work for hire, but it's your own original idea. And you never want to transform your own original idea into a work for hire. That's just not what we're doing here. I'm fine with sometimes giving away a passive royalty to a publisher if I get to control, if Eric gets to control how it gets shopped, but letting a publisher take those rights and just go off into the abyss where you never hear again until they come back to you and they're like, oh, we set it up at Agbo or we set it up at Bad Robot. You don't want that. So it depends on how much work you do before you go into the publisher. If you have the team together, if you have the art together, then that's your best shot of keeping your adaptation rights and being the one to adapt it.
That's a fantastic tip because that's not something you think about off the top. You're thinking, no, I want to get this published. I want to get it sold. I want to get it optioned. I want to get it made. I want everybody to see it, not just mom and dad and cousins and aunties and uncles.
Yeah, and the terrible truth of it is your first project, you're probably going to give away everything. Your second project, maybe you'll give away a little bit less.
Yeah.
Third project, a little less. Until you get to that point where you don't have to give away anything at all and they still want to publish your comic book. And that's where we all want to be.
It's so funny. I was laughing because I was literally on a call this afternoon with a friend who was doing his first feature for like 20 grand. And I mean, he's doing it on his own, shooting it, and he goes, I gave away too much already to the director and the points. He goes, I have nothing. And he goes, I learned so much from that, but it was the first one. He just wants to get it out there, but it is so true.
I mean, it's all about compromise. But
Eric, we're looking at you right now since you're the one negotiating the deals.
I mean,
Eric,
he'll tell you what's your number one rule? Keep the rights.
Yeah, always keep the IP.
Always keep the IP.
From what I said at the beginning, just because you own it, no matter what happens down the line, it always comes back to you.
We should have had a slide that said that. Just one slide. Just put that there.
So what do publishers and producers look for in order to greenlight the project? We've been talking about that a little bit, but what else would, really make Project A be the one that they have to go for?
It's concept and art.
Mm-hmm.
I think art is so key that they can help Editor will help you shape your story into the best that it can be. But art, you can't. It's very hard to like shape an artist. They either have it or they don't, or they're improving, or they're up and coming, that sort of thing. So art is most important for publishers and for producers. It's like a million different things that you can't even identify.
If I knew, we would be having more.
Everybody would it'd be an open bar if we knew.
Okay, and then, that jumps in, Eric, what do managers look for when considering repping a project?
When you mean repping a project, you mean?
Well, taking on, going, yes, I need to take this out to everybody, and I need to have you as one of my clients.
Yeah, okay, so that's a good question, just because I think from a manager's perspective, you're looking at the creator first.
Okay.
I think when I first got into this, I kind of like, in my head, I was like, if they have like a good piece of material, but we're not vibing as like people, I can just like take it on, and if we win together, things will work out. But it's like completely,
and then you can't get rid of him.
Yeah, it's just like completely the opposite. So as before, if it was like 70-30 project to people, now it's like 70-30 people to project. It's really looking for those people who are obviously talented, what's on the page, but it's kind of everything else, like grit, creativity, lots of ideas. Like the thing that you kind of see as a rep is a lot of perspective or potential clients with just like one idea that's just like, this is the great American novel. This is the next Everything Everywhere. And it's just like, they don't have anything else, and what reps want to see is lots of ideas, lots of projects in every different form and every different platform, because inevitably when you're going to be meeting with these executives, especially if you're lucky enough to get generals these days, they'll be like, yeah, we loved your project. We love Canto. We're just not in animation. We want to do hard R. What else do you have? And you're just like, oh, I have Drown Man. It's like, I have Drown Man.
I have this horror novel that everybody gets ripped to pieces. It's amazing.
Yeah. So those are kind of the things that I look for.
Now, when you want like people to pitch you multiple ideas, is that because is it more important because in case you don't like that one idea, they have only one, you're like, what are those other ones? Or is it because you just want to see that they have this breadth to them?
Yeah, it's a little bit of that, but I think for me personally, I can see if they want to say something, because that's something that's really valuable in the marketplace. It's really valuable to me, and it kind of gets into like when writers ask me like, do I need to have a brand? Like if I start off in horror, am I always going to be like the horror person? And I'm just like, no. If you look at all the most successful filmmakers that you love and writers that you love, they're usually like going in these kind of ebbs and flows, where it's just like they're talking about their daddy issues through horror, a drama, a TV show, or whatever they're going through in their life.
How dare you?
Yeah, so it's just like
You revealed it all.
Yeah, so it's really interesting for me to see that a writer is capable of expressing themselves and their viewpoint and how they see the world in multiple genres. I think it's really important.
And actually that brings up something we were discussing briefly earlier, which was when you're talking about genres and having something to say, we were discussing briefly the importance of how graphic novels really have that much more impact if they're discussing some sort of current political or social issue that's happening in the world today, even if it's not, the comic isn't taking place right here now in Los Angeles.
Right, and it's not overt. I mean, I never really set out to I'm going to tackle this social issue. But with like Killer Queens, I was like, if I can get this banned in libraries, mission accomplished, right? No, I just wanted, being part of the LGBTQ plus community, I wanted to put a story out there where it was just like unabashed joy and celebration for that. And so I think that touches on a lot of the social issues we have, but that's not why I made the comic. It's because I wanted to freaking Guardians of the Galaxy. I mean, but for me, talking about all the different genres, horror, all ages, fantasy, this big queer sci-fi, that sort of thing, I just make the stories that I love. And I will come up with ideas, but then the ones that really resonate with me, those are the ones that I'm going to pursue. And I think it comes through, and hopefully you can confirm that, it comes through the passion that I have for every single one of these projects that we've been talking about. And that's what my guiding light is, no matter what the genre is. I don't care about branding. That's probably awful to say on this panel, but I just don't care about branding.
No, that's what I was saying at the beginning. Is like, I think from a creator, you just want to get that creativity in your head. You want it out there. It's really up to then like the studio, the marketing.
Job.
Yeah, no, exactly. That's where it is. It's like, because then if you have to think about the branding, you start limiting yourself on what's what you want to put to paper.
So, personal question for both of you gentlemen. Michael, you're done right now. No, But so then how much discussion do you guys have as creator and rep as to like which projects you want to be pushing and which ones you want to really be developing? Or is that, cone of silence between you two until David goes, look what I've made,
Oh no, I only do what Eric tells me at this point. He's like, oh, look, the short story sold. Can you produce one and 3? Sure, here, go.
No, I think we're in a good place. We talk almost every day. So it's very loose. So it just in our natural conversations, he's always throwing ideas out at me. And I'm kind of just like thumbs up, thumbs down. But for the comic book stuff, I really trust his gut and his instinct. And, I kind of see it because he's so strong at it. And, I'm kind of coming to this through him, honestly. It's like, that's how I got
the comics.
Like repping comic book creators and creator-owned projects. I've just come at it through him. I really trust him, and I just it's the part of the job where I just have to rep whatever he gives me, because I trust him implicitly. But in stuff that
Once again, no pressure.
But in the stuff that we're originating in the film and TV space and specking out movie ideas, which we're doing, it's just like a constant conversation between us.
Yeah, because Eric has conversations all the time with the buyers, with executives, with production companies, and he puts his finger on the pulse of what everybody's looking for. And for specs, he will come to me and say, this is what people want. Let's talk about what we can do in this space. For comic books, if I set up a comic book at Image, Boom, IDW, Dark Horse, we've already had a gatekeeper say, yes, this is good enough to publish as a comic. And I think at that point, we can be fairly confident taking it out into the market, whether or not it sells. I mean, there's a million different factors, but at least somebody else putting their money forward for your idea is at least good enough for me to say, okay, well, this is something worthwhile worth pursuing.
Another question for everybody, because we think this all takes place as quickly as we went through those slides. Yeah.
Piece of cake. Piece of cake.
So it took an hour to do all of that. Yeah. But so how long does it take to do these kind of pitches and set them up and shop them out? And how long for a graphic novel does it sit in development, or does it?
I mean, honestly, the actual creation is quick. Like I've found in comic books, the creation of the pitch and all that, the roadblock is setting up meetings and just coordinating those and actually negotiating the deal. It's
the deal
really
takes
crazy.
Forever.
Years,
and
months and years.
Yeah, and then we'll start production on the comic book, and we'll have 3 issues, probably 6 weeks. After a script is done, 6 weeks is about what it takes for art, 6 to 8 weeks for a single 20-page comic book. And I like to, you should probably, if you're doing a 4-issue or a 5-issue, this is 4-issue series, I strongly recommend having three issues finished in the can before issue 1 comes out, because once the train leaves the station, you're either on that train or you're underneath it. So none of us want to be underneath it because it just goes so fast. So getting the pitch together, it can take time. It depends on your team, because oftentimes you will ask the artist, can you pair up with me and we'll split the rights on this, but you'll do it on spec, I'll do it on spec, and we will create a pitch or pages to go out with. And then when the artist is working on spec, if they're also working on Firefly or they're working on freaking Care Bears or something, whatever, that's paid. And these artists need to get paid. So your project's going to take a back seat because you're not paying them. So what I do for pitches is I always offer to pay the artists their page rate. And that way you can get it going faster. And then the contracts take 847 years, and then you have a comic book.
Fantastic. A side question. So on The Drowned Man, going back to that one where you only had the cover art, but that was something you had also hired the artist to do. That wasn't something you were luckily able to find and then, merge the images with your, oh, okay, yeah. Wouldn't that be nice if you could just do that?
I don't even want to say the words,
Uh-oh.
the letters out loud, but y'all know what I'm talking about. And that's not something that you should do. And for a lot of reasons, there's a whole big, rich tapestry of reasons. It's AI.
Oh,
AI
right.
art. And you shouldn't do it. And the most practical reason you shouldn't do it is because everybody else sitting on this side of the table knows it and can see it immediately in your pitch. And if you send in a pitch with AI art, I guarantee you that every single editor to look at it will never give you the time of day. So it can be easy. It can be a path forward, but it's not a good one right now. So that's my soapbox.
Well, okay.
My
Yeah, well,
artificially generated soapbox.
you see everybody's hands just going down in the audience.
I'm sure you've all looked at it and been like,
Yeah.
oh my God, I can make a comic just by writing words into a mid-journey? Oh my gosh. But don't do it. Don't do it.
No, so I'll be honest, I've used AI to create images, and for pitch decks, it just hasn't worked. Or you can, but you're just like, you're like, ooh, it's just off, and then you just don't even want to go there because you can tell. And I've seen others have done it, and I immediately have seen it in the deck, and I'm like, that was done by AI, and it's not good. It just, and when I say not good, meaning it's a bad thing to do, yes, but it's not good because it just doesn't look. It's not there. It's not, granted, there might be AIs that we don't know about that people are using, right? They, got past us, but it's
people, humans.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. No, but it's not there, and I think you'll lose the credibility within the creative industry. I mean, that's what it really comes down to. I mean, if you want to use it for your newsletter or whatever, fine, but when it comes down to pitching ideas, that's where you have to be very careful.
Do we want to open it up for Q&A, you guys? What are we thinking here?
We
Yes.
we barely covered anything, so.
Ooh, please speak up, and I'll repeat the question back for the audio recording.
You
Everybody.
can talk louder. My name is Shafita Smith, and my company is Shiro Comics. We do comics featuring women of color. My question is, I've had a manager before, but it seems like in Hollywood right now, even though graphic novels and comics are hot, the managers and agents don't really understand it. So it's like I would go to meetings, or my comic book was J.J. Abrams or whatever. He would read it and like, oh, this is great, but the manager still didn't understand it. Like, do you think that's getting better in Hollywood, to where the managers and agents are actually have to look at graphic novels instead of just screenplays?
Okay. So to summarize that, managers and agents. So what's the scoop? They don't seem to be very graphic novel savvy. Is that changing?
I think you're going to the wrong people. But yeah, because just with everything we've said, all the examples that you read about every day, it's just like every rep is very open. In fact, I would say they're more open to novels, graphic novels, and comics than they are scripts, frankly. So yeah,
You also had a learning curve too, a little bit, when we first started working together, right? You were kind of learning the comics industry and that sort of thing.
Yeah, just in terms of learning the industry, but I think managers and agents, like kind of the gross part is, we just see it as like a piece of business, and they should be open to it because it is a good piece of business. So I don't know if that answers your question. Sorry. Yeah.
It helps. Great. Who else has a question? Now's your opportunity. Yes, in the front row.
It's a little follow-on to that, a little more focused on one issue. I know the film industry pretty well. Had some success. And certainly in the film industry, one of the toughest things is to get your script read. And that means getting an agent or a manager. I used to work at CA as an assistant, so I know how hard it is. At the bigger, I mean, they just won't look at anything. I know a bit about the publishing industry, not graphic work, because that's why I'm here. And they're pretty open to unsolicited submissions. You know, give us a chapter and a query letter, and something can happen. There's no, as far as I know, nothing like that in the motion picture industry. In this industry, it's sounding like it's a little more positive. Must you get a manager and agent to even get read or seen by a publisher? And how do managers and agents treat unsolicited? Do you not look at anything? Do you have to make a relationship first?
So to summarize that,
Please do.
Eric, are you necessary at all? Do we need managers and agents in order to really get the juices flowing here?
It's hard.
Well,
What I hear you
And I
saying,
am very
sir.
interested to know this.
with publishing, obviously, to your point, it is much more open to like queries. It's still really hard sending stuff in cold, but it can be done. But with publishing specifically, now this is book publishing, like the major publishers, it's like an agent. You have to go through like a book agent with.
It's like Penguin, Simon & Schuster, Scholastic. They're only agented submissions.
So with like the direct market, we call it the direct market, creator-owned market, which is like Dark Horse, Image, Boom, IDW. It's you can have like a manager, but I just personally I kind of sit in the middle of TV, film and TV, and publishing. So I kind of like to go back and forth, whether it's taking screenwriters and bringing them to the comic space and vice versa. But with that's more relationship based. That more mirrors the film industry and just like knowing editors like Chris, who was supposed to be here, and people who work as junior executives at all these companies.
I mean, the economics of it is.
Yeah,
I mean,
there's no reps in comics.
The Image, Dark Horse. There's not that much money there, so reps aren't going to just want to do that for you. They're going to want to rep the IP so that they can set it up for TV and film. My suggestion is instead of so what I did to set up Canto is. I had a first comic that I published. It didn't really do much, but it just sort of got me familiar with comics. And I went to San Diego Comic-Con, which I'm looking at your sweatshirt right now. I went to San Diego Comic-Con for a decade before I even published. I even had my first idea for a comic book. And I went to all these different publishers' booths, and I met editors because they're in the booths. And I bought books from those publishers. And I just was friendly, and we just, geeked out over Lock and Key and, all these other books that I loved. And so when the time came, instead of throwing it into the abyss at submissions at darkhorse.com or whatever, I actually had names of editors that I could reach out to specifically. So you can do your legwork to not throw it into the abyss by just being out there in the comics industry and meeting people and being the type of person that other people want to see succeed. And that's how I approached it. So I didn't have to do I just pictured I'll tell the story. I sent it over to IDW with an editor's name, and I was like, oh, this Canto, this is it. I'm so in. I have an editor's name. I'm totally going to do this. And he emails me back. He's like, oh, great. I'll send this over to the submissions committee. And I just pictured like Fargo and this wood chipper where they took the thing, they threw it in, and it spit out the other side as confetti. And I went, oh, that's 10 years of great work that just was down the tubes. But it did come out intact. It still went through that wood chipper, but it must have malfunctioned because it came out intact on the other side.
But to answer the second part of your question about like querying managers and agents, and it's a tough one. It's a tough market. It's a tough road. There's so many writers. You just kind of have to work everything. It's like networking, like David says. like keeping those doors open, trying to find some ways into these places through personal relationships. It's, it's querying a little bit. I would encourage everyone here to just start entering these script contests like Coverfly,
Austin,
all of these things, because that is what's going to make your query letter kind of stand out. And I found that all of these script competitions do a good job about advocating for scripts that they've read or that done well on their website or what have you, and like reaching out to managers. So, and that's how I got my start. I switched over to being a literary manager like 5 years ago. And that's how I got my start. I literally just popped the trunk and started working at the Le Pen Quotidian outside of Sony. I didn't start as an assistant anywhere. And that's how I got my first clients, was through that and through personal relationships, meeting David, and then it just sort of like feeds into each other. So just like, it's better that you send a query letter, because we do read them, or the assistants read them. And they will flag the ones that are just like, oh, like he was a quarterfinalist in X, Y, and Z. Like, I'll read it. And then if he likes it, then it'll be flagged to one of us. And then we can read it and kind of evaluate it. But you just want to have, just keep all avenues open, the main door, the side door, just keep working all the avenues. But like, I can't stress enough, at the end of the day, it's just like, it's about the script. I think this city like kind of gets you in this mentality of just like, I gotta hustle, I gotta meet X, Y, and Z, I gotta present it this way because they did it, but it is just about the script at the end of the day. And that's how your stuff is gonna get made, which is like what we're all here to do, is write stuff that gets made. And it's just about what's on the script, so.
And that's the good news right there. We all got that.
it's all within your control.
Yeah, fantastic. Ladies and gentlemen, who else has a question? Yes.
Okay, I have a three-part question that
Oh my.
it surrounds, if you want to make a comic book, but you don't have money. Okay, so the question would be, first of all, how likely is it to get a publishing company to look at because you have a variety of pitch decks that go from like the Canto, which is very art heavy, and then mostly text-based. So how likely is it for somebody who is unpublished or less published to get a text-based pitch deck looked at by a publishing company?
Okay, if I could jump in on that to do it for the recording. So we're looking at somebody who is unpublished, is unknown, has a text-heavy pitch deck to show people with minimal art.
Yeah.
A couple of stick figures,
Well, I mean, there is the path that you can take, which is it doesn't cost you anything to create the pitch, right? With no art. And you can do that. Again, I would strongly suggest everybody sort of go meet editors first, and then you're not unknown at that point. You might be, unpublished, but you're not unknown. And that's $0. Or you can partner with an artist and tell them, I'll give you half of this basically, or I'll give you half a royalty, and we'll split it if you help me get this set up at a publisher. And the publishers will never, ever ask you for any money up front. And if they ask you for money, you run away as fast as possible. And we all sort of know that, at least with like managers and agents. If they ever ask you for money to edit your script or whatever, don't do that. So there's a couple of paths there that are $0. And that's what I would recommend: meeting editors, going to mixers, going to panels like this, and then creating the document either on your own or partnering with the artist. And social media is where you find your artists. I think we have social media. If you go, my Twitter is @DavidBooher, and I follow tons and tons of artists. So if you want to just do a little tiny bit of cyber stalking that I won't be mad at you for, look at who I'm following, and you can start looking at who they're following, and that's where you start finding artists. But I think that's the path with $0. Now, part 2.
Okay, I'm gonna jump to part 3 actually.
Oh, okay.
You said, so I'm curious because
I
I
have a
know.
follow-up to that too. I just thought about it.
Jump in.
No.
Jump in.
You wanna ask me? So a lot of these companies also have these departments that are just like me. They sit between the comics and the entertainment side, so the publishing and entertainment side. And they're very open to taking just like raw pitches, ideas, one pagers, and if they like the idea, they'll either float it to their comics executives, and they'll kind of build it out from there with creators, or to the entertainment side executives, and then it could go both ways. Like Christopher, one of my clients, Christopher Greenslate, we pitched a comic, we'll go unnamed, a comic book publisher like 2 years ago, in that kind of, what are the names of those departments that they call? I'm blanking. The ones that sit between comics and TV.
Oh, talent relations?
Yeah, like kind of like a talent relations group. And then they passed on it, but then the editor went to a new place, and they just cold reached out last week, and we're expecting an offer on a comic book idea that we pitched 2 years ago, and it was just like a 4-page pitch document, you know. So that's a good way to get into, is just sort of like going to these, like IDW has that, Aftershock has that,
Yeah.
I think Dark Horse has it.
Yep.
But to check in on that, if you're doing it like that, then they're going to probably have all the rights. As far as,
Yes.
yeah, just heads up going, if you're going in that way, recognize that you're giving that much up right off the bat.
But I mean, if you, it's so different for everything. So if you have a strong team and you go in, they may say, well, we'll take a royalty at the back end, but if you think you can get it set up, then go do it. So there's a lot of different permutations of what you can do out there.
Yeah, but like with the example I just told, it's going to be a creator-owned book, and he's going to get to own it. They're fronting all the costs. So,
Oh, that's right. Because a unicorn publisher that's going to front the costs and not take the rights. So
yeah, but you know, obviously they
Hello.
push out.
ask me offline.
They push out my client's recoupment
Oh, yeah.
off until they recoup their costs, but
Sure.
we're willing to do that just because it's his first comic book.
Right.
Okay.
So-
But that's what a lovely happy ending to that, you know, that story right there.
Sure.
Yes, please. All right. Go, girl.
Okay, so I found that a lot of comic book artists that are very, very good are also very busy, which you said, you know, that's why you pay them for that.
Right.
So my question, I guess, you know, maybe it just comes back to the script, but I'm curious if there's like a way to kind of talk a comic book artist into your project. Like how do you sell yourself to the artist?
Okay, to repeat that. It's my turn, David. So to repeat that, how do you, the writer, pitch yourself to the artist so that you're the shiny thing that they
My
must have?
recommendation, if this is your first comic project, look for up and coming artists who don't have a lot of credits, but their work is amazing. Like you love their work and it fits your style. There are tons of artists out there who haven't been given the shot. And so, like Drew on Canto, he had done the Kickstarter book. He had done a couple things before that, but wasn't like this huge name. But I loved his work, and so it was like the perfect moment for both of us to partner up. So look for those artists that want to do these kind of projects who are looking to get to the next level, just like you are.
And be producerial, you know, just come to them like, this is my idea, but this is the plan on the other side. And if you pair with me, I can't guarantee like we're going to sell it, but this is my plan to get it in front of X, Y, and Z.
I love that you added that in because, again, as the creators, you go, look, I have this wonderful idea and it's fantastic and there's cotton candy with it too, you know? And then it's like, yeah, but no, what are your plans to sell this sucker so I can pay my mortgage? Yeah, good heads up on that. Was that, you're good to go? What? Okay.
One final, and maybe this is abstract, but if you are a screenwriter and you would like to keep your IP, but you would also like to start, you know, having people read your work, is there a benefit? Do you think there's a benefit to going in with the 4-page written text and letting them package your idea and losing the rights to it, essentially, the adaptation rights, or would you just steer clear of that in general?
So, how good of an idea is it to give away your rights?
Just that train, you're right under it. I'm just kidding. We have very different answers. Go.
There you go.
Yes, it's fine. It's fine. He will say, no, it's not. Well, if you are just starting out, like it said earlier, you got to give it all away probably. And then the next one, maybe a little bit less. And you just got to work your way to the point where you can hold on to that and people will still want to work with you. And it's just, I think, the reality of the business.
Yeah, and it's just something you can speak to, as a rep. That's what you're looking for, and this is what I tell people. This business now, it used to be a lot of potential, like people taking risks, but now it's a momentum game. They just want to see someone who's got X, Y, and Z going, has demonstrated success, and that's one way to do it. Just like as a rep, it's something I can sell. Like we've set up Canto and Killer Queens, but he hasn't adapted them yet. That's something I can use to sell the next thing. And if you set up like something, or just like, a producer is packaging this, that's something that you can use when you're honestly like reaching out to other collaborators, whether it be artists or something. It's just something to kind of just like set yourself apart.
My first ever project is gone forever. I'll never see any shadow of it again, I know. But then, Canto came, and then I did one more thing, and then Canto came along, and I kept the rights to that. So we're all in exactly the same boat about how much we have to give away.
I know, like he sold this script to a no-name financier. It's gone forever because this financier is gone. But in those first 2 years, that's what I could say, like he sold
and
the
you
script.
you still use it as a sample, then you get meetings off of.
Yeah.
So it's intangible stuff.
Yeah.
Jen, just so you know, it's 8:30. We can do like 2 more questions. And by the way, we're gonna do. You can meet afterwards. We're gonna, network afterwards.
Stockholm
but
syndrome
officially,
at this point.
we got 2 more. She told me I should pull one off.
You were supposed to use our
We'll be
secret
I know. I was supposed to
phrase.
use the phrase. I forgot what the phrase.
We'll stick around
End it
too.
now.
Yes, exactly.
Wait, so final question. Oh, I got 2. One
we
and
could do
2.
2, like 2.
Okay, yeah.
So how do you divvy up ownership of the book, and then when you take it out to pitch to other mediums, are the artists and colorists and letters and so on involved in that process?
Okay, wait, to repeat. My turn. It's all me, David. So to repeat that question, how do you split the rights on that and the monies on that? And are all of you in the room together with the pitch? Are all 12 of you coming in, all the artists and letterers and everything? How's that work out?
That's 2 very interesting but very separate questions about who's on the pitch versus what rights. If you give rights to the artist, most of the time artists do not have any interest in being in TV or film or anything like that. It's about making sure that you're going to use their art to set it up. So it's making sure they feel valued in the process. So what I like to do with Canto, Drew is in all the pitches and he's doing active development because we are so close together on this project, and it's really a dual project.
Definitely a co-creator.
Co-creator project. Other ones, I can write into our collaboration agreement, yes, you'll get 50%, but it's a passive royalty, and I'm the one who's going to be able to control how it goes out, whose reps are on it. And the reality is Eric will rep both of us because they're another owner on it, but they're almost always passive. They don't really have any interest. Talk to your artist about that. But most of the time, it's just like, get me paid, and you can do whatever you want with it. Colorists and letterers almost never they might get a tiny little passive royalty of like 2%, 3% in the back end, but they don't really get any ownership stake in it. So those are usually just pure page rate, work for hire, colors, and letters.
Do you have books where you just use work for hire artists?
Yes.
You usually do.
Killer Queens. Canto was a co-creation, co-owners. Killer Queens was a pure work for hire that I got to keep the rights for. And I mean, the nuts and bolts of it are that whoever's buying your project is going to go get a release from the artist so that they don't make any claims against it. and you have to be transparent about that. But just cultivate a good working relationship with your artist, and everything goes really smoothly, and you have a beautiful book, and you sell it, and you just become a Hollywood millionaire. Just kidding, that's not me for sure.
That's the next project,
That's
you know, because
true.
you gave away all the rights and then some of the rights and now no
And then $1
rights.
million. 3 steps.
Woo!
All the rights, none of the rights, and $1 million.
Well done to you, Eric, for negotiating that, you know. All right, wait, we had one more question.
Yes. I have a question about webcomics. Suppose a writer finds an artist and creates a comic, and they just want to do what Girl Genius did, or Lackadaisy Cats, or You Put the Beer with one of those days, and you just want to put it out on the internet and sort of build up a following directly with an audience. What's the best way to go about that? Get the word out about your comic, get people interested in it.
Okay, so to kind of summarize that, you want to go directly for a web comic. All right, we've put it out there. How do we get the following? How do we get all the hype going about it?
First, run, don't walk, to make a webcomic, because they're wonderful. It's a great outlet. It's a great venue. They occupy such a place of esteem in the comics industry that don't ever be afraid of doing digital or web comics. And then as far as getting it out there, it's social media. It's just make 100 comics. I know it's a lot, but make 100 comics and keep posting and keep building that audience. Because I don't know if you rep webcomics yet, but it's IP and it's out there and it gets set up. So, and that's a $0 for printing. So do it.
Look at this. We've got some fabulous things to get you going there in, you know, comic books themselves / graphic novels. And then look, we've got the adaptations going on as well. Obviously, we're going to, you know, keep this in the recording. This isn't a cone of silence moment for our resources.
The Scott McCloud 3 books, Understanding Comics, Making Comics, and Reinventing Comics, I think is the third one, are just like textbooks for reading and making comics.
Awesome, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for coming and making this an amazing evening. Without you, we are not here.
Thank you, Jen, for moderating.
Oh, thank you, you guys.